Hi everybody, this is Matt Lawton and this is the Astrological Winds channel, and we are going to take a look at not only the first week of December's astrological weather forecast, but the whole month of December's general forecast, and we'll do that first. Actually, there's really not a super lot going on this week anyway, so it's a good week to do both of them. Now, yesterday or like late Sunday night, going into early Monday morning, we had that full moon lunar eclipse at 9 degrees Gemini that I talked about in last week's forecast. So that really ended our month of November kind of straddling Sunday and Monday. So in December 1st, the forecast for December, there's 5 like bigger things I want to look at, and this is the month that many of you are aware of, and we can see it in the sky every night as it gets dark, that Jupiter and Saturn are finally going to conjunct one another, and that will be happening at actually 1 degree Aquarius as far as astrologically. So this is like really a huge shift, and that will be happening this month. So we'll get into that in a lot more detail around the solstice, third week of the month, because that is when it is actually occurring, literally on the day of the solstice. So like, not only is like pretty much the new astrological calendar year starting then, but the age of, or the dawn or middle of the age of Aquarius starting and being handed off from the age of Pisces. So a day that us astrologers have been looking towards for many years. So anyway, first though, let's just go through in a chronological order those 5 main events of December. So we had that first eclipse of this second eclipse season of 2020 at 9 degrees Gemini, the other on Sunday night, Monday morning. And our second eclipse is actually going to be one of the big 5 events of the month, and that one will occur. It is a solar eclipse, this time a new moon, and that's at 24 degrees Sagittarius, and that one will be occurring on December 14th. So that is going to be like, there's the solar eclipses can bring in the external events much more than the lunar eclipses. So we may see, this eclipse within 1 week of the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn at 1 degree Aquarius, both of those planets going into Aquarius, all that happening right around the solstice is all new stuff. So like we're in for like, some new things, some new changes. And the eclipse at 23-24 Sag will mean anyone with lots of mutable energy or planets or points around 23-24 degrees, there may be some serious turns in your life, but we can also expect some really interesting things on the world's larger stage too, that can force some serious changes, and changes that, usually mean never going back to the way things were. It's like taking a serious turn on your path. The very next day, on December 15th, is our second big event of the month, and Chiron will go direct in Aries. So Chiron's been in Aries for a while now. It's been a year. And like I said, when I've talked about Chiron and Aries before, it's really a time when I think for these years that Chiron is going through Aries, where we're really going to need to be self-responsible for our own healing, our own learning, our own wisdom, you know, that we have to take the actions for that we're, you know, many people like have gotten used to like, you know, being able to get what they need, especially for, you know, their healing or whatever it may be, and like can, you know, almost be like force-fed it at times. But in this case, there's more of a need for us to stand up as an individual and take the actions necessary to get what we feel like we really need for our healing, for our teaching, for our wisdom, for like the information we're collecting that we want to become more experts on, become talented in. So these are years where really there's a lot of self-responsibility involved in that path, and that no one's going to do it for you, that you really have to do this. So with Chiron turning direct now, you know, this is something we've been contemplating for the last 4 or 5 months. So now it's got to be like a more active thing, like doing the things we know that will bring in healing energy to us as an individual. And as we heal ourselves, that's how we heal, you know, society and the path of the collective together too. So, so that's December 15th. Then the very next day is the day that Saturn goes into Aquarius for good. Now remember, Saturn did go into Aquarius, what was it, last, I think it was like July, early July for a while, then came back out when it turned direct. I mean, when it went retrograde. I think, oh yeah, no, I think it went in May, and then when it turned retrograde in July, it went back into Cap. That was how it went. So, so it's back into Aquarius for good now. It's not just a little taste of Aquarius. Now, it's interesting with Saturn because Capricorn and Aquarius are the two signs that Saturn rules. And they're right next to each other in the zodiac. They're the two signs that are the furthest away from the lights. That is the sun, Leo, the moon, Cancer. They're all the way over, far away on the other side of the zodiac. So they're the furthest from the individual, the furthest from the life-giving force and the emotions and the issues that surround that the sun and moon, which is us as individuals, who we really are. So Saturn's that, you know, that planet, you know, that's that judge. It's that, you know, Old Testament fatherly God authority figure who is most detached from the individual and their emotions and, you know, what their own interest and life drive is. And so we've had Saturn in Capricorn for the better part of the last 2.5 years. When Saturn goes through a sign, it takes about 2.5 years. So the next 2.5 years, Saturn's going to be in Aquarius. But it's interesting because it's still very strong. It's a 5-year period when Saturn goes through Capricorn and Aquarius, that Saturn is in very strong position. That authoritarian, social, distant from the emotion and the individual energy is really, really strong and dictating a lot about what goes on in an individual's lives. And we can see in this last 2.5 years with it in Capricorn, some really serious issues that Pluto has actually been exposing in Saturn's kingdom in Capricorn, and showing it that, you know, it can't remain stagnant. It can't expect not to be able to change, that a lot of its structure may not be very flexible, and therefore has a chance of crumbling apart, and it's showing cracks, and it's showing like places where things need to be improved, that it's not keeping up. So like, it's kind of like, from the way I see Saturn and the way it rules these two signs, like the Capricorn part is the more traditional part. It's the more wise, traditional, this is the way it's been done. We have a lot of wisdom and understanding this way, but it can get like authoritarian and stuck and dictatorial about especially when it's under stress, which is the way the system and structures of society are now. Remember, just like Jupiter, Saturn has much to do with society, much more than our personal lives, but it does affect our personal lives. So, you know, we've had like the issues of like, you know, the COVID virus, and, you know, different social justice issues in relation to police and the way they treat minorities. We've had like immigration issues, all these like issues that, you know, are showing that the structure of the society that we're in is no longer working for what's going on now. And that's where Aquarius comes in. It's still Saturn's realm. But it's like, it's to me a higher octave of Saturn than the octave in Capricorn, where it's like, listen, now I'm admitting of the reality of the situation, that, you know, that there's a need for changes in the system, that it's not working as well or as efficiently as it used to. So that Saturn in Aquarius energy, that's what that brings in. And it's the same thing in our personal lives too, where we'll see like the systems and things that we have that could use improvement. So we can find ideas from other people, from other sources of information, but it's very like intellectually driven Aquarius. You know, it's like creative intellectual energy. So how do we make a system better? We don't want to tear the whole thing down. And that's in our personal lives and in society. But we need to recognize where there's issues and then bring in this Aquarian energy to improve things. And what we do with Aquarius many times, because it is an intellectually driven sign, is that we will use technology and science and mathematical type stuff to make those improvements. So it's really fine tuning them, you know, so you know, it's 2.5 years of that energy going on with Saturn, of improving those systems and you know, trying to make things work better. And there is that part of Saturn too. Now remember, Saturn is the lawgiver too. So that whole thing of the equality and justice, that and how it's affecting us personally and how it's affecting groups in society is going to very much continue to be a big interest in the restructuring of the things around us and the parts of society that need restructuring. So in other words, Saturn as a lawgiver is interested in social justice. That's why it's strong in Libra too. It is interested in equality. It is interested in all those things. It recognizes that in order for the society to work well and in balance and in harmony, that there has to be this equality, that people have to be treated fairly and dealt with like similarly, no matter what group they belong to. So that's a very much a big part of that energy. So then, right on the 19th, Jupiter also goes into Aquarius after a year of being in Capricorn, just about. It's going to go into Aquarius too, and Jupiter is going to be a lot happier in Aquarius. Like I said, Jupiter is our great beneficial planet, and it's really been shackled this year in Capricorn, in one of the signs that it's weakest in. It is not happy there. It is not able to function in the way that it normally wants to. So it hasn't been able to help alleviate the constricting, restrictive energy of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. It hasn't, if anything, it's actually expanded that. And that's why it was such an intense year, that Jupiter's expansion energy got pushed into like this darker Saturn-Pluto energy and combined with that because it was in such a weak sign. So here it is, and it's going to go into Aquarius, and it completely will shift things. Jupiter in Aquarius is a lot happier, very inventive, ready to expand its ideas, once again, very interested in social justice because Jupiter is all about value systems and philosophy of life. And so like it really wants, to see the greater good spread out for all also. And Jupiter, once again, just like Saturn, has a lot to do with law and courts and things like that. So, it's going to want to support a lot of these movements for justice and social equality and things like that. And this is going to be for the next year, and it's the same thing in our lives too. It's like, it really can help bring us new kinds of ideas that will help improve the things we have going on in our lives, that will expand the things we already have going on in our lives, that and we can collect them from different people and kind of like change them a little bit, so that they fit us better. And so that's really interesting. We've got like I said, just like boom, 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 this is all going to happen. The eclipse on the 14th, Chiron direct on the 15th, Saturn into Aquarius on the 16th, Jupiter into Aquarius on the 19th, and all culminating when Jupiter conjuncts Saturn at 1 degree Aquarius on the solstice, December 21st. And that, we'll talk about that in a lot more detail and the solstice chart too, but that is the beginning of a new age, okay? An age of a generation. It's not a super long age. It's not like the whole age of Aquarius, which is a 2,000-year plus period of time. It's an 18 to 20-year period where Jupiter and Saturn create a new social age. So we're going to move out and into this, And when we talk about the age of Aquarius, I tell people, well, people ask me, well, when did it start? There's no exact date when it started. Astrology has this thing called cusps, where the energy of one thing that's ending blends into the energy of the next thing that's beginning. So that's what we call a cusp, like the two energies come together. So the age of Pisces, which is ending, has a lot of steam built up, but you can see it's falling apart, this age, and it's probably been falling apart now for close to 100 years. When you think about the first women's suffrage movement, the beginning of atomic and nuclear power, and the beginning of modern psychology, and humans really getting into the consciousness of the mind. Those three things all started, 100 plus years ago, but they kind of like were the crack of the beginning of the age of Aquarius. And now, here we are with Jupiter and Saturn doing their conjunction in air, which means they're going to be leaving 200 plus years of conjunction in earth signs, where people were really driven to take the natural resources of the earth and turn them into energy and assets and objects and monetary value things, which is something that people created themselves. But during this 200 plus years, that's really been the focus. And now we're going to have 200 plus years every 20 years when Jupiter and Saturn conjunct. It will be in air signs now, which is really going to, push this more intellectually driven, technology driven kind of society for the next couple hundred years. So this one right here, about 100 years after we started to see maybe the cusp of Aquarius begin, and then it really became strong in the 1960s when Pluto and Uranus conjuncted together, Uranus being the planet that has the most, besides Saturn, affinity with Aquarius, and brought in all these new mores and values into modern society that to this day we're still absorbing. And that's part of the Uranus-Pluto square a few years ago was the first quarter square of that conjunction, and we're just still in the midst of absorbing all these new changes. So this cusp is going to probably go on at least another 40 or 50 years. Usually the cusps between these ages are 140 to 200 years. So this really, to me, is where the Aquarian energy starts to be more than the Pisces energy. It's like the middle of the cusp, and where they're almost both balanced, which is why we're seeing a lot of conflict and divisiveness too, because of being right in the middle of these two different ways of looking at things. And so right now, it's going to start going towards a more Aquarian part of the cusp, where the Piscean energy will be let go more and more as time goes on. So anyway, that's some of the exciting stuff and changes to look forward to. And like I said, I'll talk about this a lot more in detail when we do the winter solstice chart, third week of December, weather forecast, where would be where that would fall in most likely. All right, real quick, like I said, there wasn't much super going on this week. The biggest thing going on this week is Mercury is going into Sag. After all those weeks of being in Scorpio, because that's where it did its retrograde there. It's been in Scorpio since early October. So it's been 2 months of Scorpio energy for Mercury. So it's going to finally go into Sag. So that's really, really the biggest thing going on this week. Like I said, Monday we had some of the residual of the eclipse and full moon still, and there was Mercury doing its third sextile to the 3 planets in Capricorn and sextiling Saturn, which is just a really good time to work on details of things, to organize things, to get advice from people more experienced or older than you. Just really good time to just get that kind of practical stuff done. So Mercury goes into Sag on Tuesday, and that is actually Mercury's its sign of detriment. It's one of its signs of detriment, which means it's actually traditionally weak in that sign. And why would that be so? It's mainly because when Mercury gets into Sag, the mind just kind of takes off and it becomes unmoored, basically. And it really, therefore, it becomes like sloppy, unwilling to look at the details and things like that. It has a lot of grandiose ideas. It has a lot of really good ideas. It has a very big vision. It can see big patterns. It's willing to take chances, but it's also like not a really good approach in the organization and details of doing that stuff. So Mercury in Sag has a way of tripping itself up a lot because of that. It can get a little bit self-righteous with words when it's wanting to like push or coerce its ideas, like kind of preachy kind of thing. So, you know, it'll be in Sag for like probably close to 3 weeks. And you know, it's just one of those things where you need to kind of slow yourself down before you make big decisions and stuff, and make sure that you're taking care of details, or, you know, more likely than not, you're going to have some complications to deal with. Saturday is a really sweet Venus trine Neptune, which is just one of the nicest, sweetest aspects there can be. It's really the combining of like lower conditional love with unconditional love in this very like harmonious way. So like a lot of our ideals get, you know, lived up to for a couple days for the weekend. It should be a really sweet weekend socially under this aspect. And I know like there's a lot of you know, a lot of like inability to, you know, socialize in the ways, manners that we're used to, but this is just a really sweet aspect on that level. It's like, you know, it's kind of got like soulmate kind of energy. It's also like really beautiful for artistic expression or being out in nature, in, you know, or in other pleasant type surroundings. It's kind of like a nice chill out kind of transit, passive and receptive energy. You know, just the, you know, just the reverie about life kind of energy. But it's interesting because on the same day, Venus is quincunx Mars, which means like, you know, the energy between people in romantic type relationships can be edgy. It can be off. It can be awkward. So that's kind of interesting. You know, it doesn't affect, you know, people not in romantic relationships as much, although for people who are looking for a romantic relationship, it can mean some wrong choices. So if that's the situation you're in, just, you know, be aware of that you may like, you know, maybe like sacrificing or, you know, overlooking things or making a wrong choice, and really might want to slow down on where you're at with that. But it can, yeah, like I said, it can bring some edginess otherwise to relationships you're already in, and in worst case scenarios can even need some like serious adjustment to the relationship in order for it to continue, or even, you know, might be a situation where it's just not worth continuing and there's a separation. The next day, Sunday, there's also another quincunx. The Mercury quincunxes Uranus on Sunday, and that gives us like a really jumpy mind. It really, gives us like a scattered energy, overstimulated, a lot of stuff coming at us where it's like difficult to like follow one for too long before something else comes in and grabs our attention. It also can be like difficult to articulate, you know, our thoughts. It's almost like we can't, like our tongues get tied up or twisted somehow. So interesting energy with that. It's just like can work you up into like a nervous frenzy kind of thing. So it's best to just kind of do what you can to slow down, you know, take some deep breaths, you know, just relax, maybe try to tap into still some of that Venus Neptune trine that's going on the weekend too. All right, so that's, you know, like I said, not a lot going on this week. It's really that Mercury and Sag is really going into Sag is really the really big shift. And, you know, so you just want to be more careful with anything that you're getting into and just make sure you're not overlooking, you know, details. And a lot of times we're actually purposely doing that with Sag in some way. It's almost like we're kind of being flippant about things. Well, you know, I'm going to get my way anyway. And you may get your way, but like it's also going to be messy if you're not taking care of those things. All right, so a real big rest of the month coming up in front of us. Next week, we'll be getting close by the end of the week to that full moon, or to the new moon at 2324 Sag, which is a solar eclipse. So there'll be a real good chance that in next week's weather forecast, I'll cover that eclipse because it really deserves a lot of energy in it, and there's a lot going on after that. So it'd be good to maybe just separate that out and give ourselves a lot of attention. All right. I am also now on Spotify. I am also now on Apple Podcasts. You just have to look up the Astrological Winds channel if you'd prefer to just, you know, have an audio version of the blog. And please become a follower. Please spread the blog around. That really is really helpful, and people really enjoy it. And if you need a reading, I'm available for all kinds of readings. My email is matthuE823@gmail.com. Also have beginning astrology classes going on. There's 3 of them available right now. And it starts with the signs of the zodiac. So we got the cardinal signs are up. The fixed signs are going to be up within the next day or two also. So if you'd like them to be involved with that, or just hear any of these as an individual class because you have just an individual interest in one of those things, they are available right now on Dropbox, and it's $25. Or if you're a student ID, it's $20. And if you'd like, you know, just start taking the class, it's available that way too. And so it'll be at least 4 classes up right now by the end of this week. The 5th class will probably be up on the mutable signs. So that'll have all the signs of the zodiac will be available. So if you want to just hear anything on the sign you're interested in, just as a one-off, that's available. And like I said, all kinds of readings available. I do the natal charts, that's your birth chart, predictive readings that cover a year. If you have children's readings, relationship charts, elections, which is the best time to choose something, fixed star readings, which is, you know, readings on like our deeper soul purpose, which is attached to the stars beyond even our solar system, and horary questions. So any of those types of services you need, I'm available. Been doing readings for 18 years professionally. So just once again, matthuE823@gmail.com. All right, until next week, just, you know, take care of those details with Mercury and Sag. Don't work yourself too far up and forget.
Take care now.